This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 151 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is scuba diving travel. Now, I am quick to confess, I have never been scuba diving, and I am a little bit scared of it, I have to tell you. Having said that, after chatting with my three guests today, I almost feel the urge to go and sign up for a scuba course, but only almost. I'm probably not the only one out there who feels a bit worried about all the things that scuba diving involves, particularly, that, breathing underwater thing, and who else you might meet down there. Having said that, my guests have, really nearly convinced me to go. But more on them in a moment. First of all, I have to say a big thanks to our sponsor, Easy Travel Speak. Easy Travel Speak is a very smart new course brought to you by my friends Kim and Wei from Nomading About. Basically, it helps you get to speak another language quickly, in a way that people will understand, but without having to think too hard about grammar or rules or anything like that. It's basically a really smart system so that you can be heading to a new destination with a new language and very quickly be able to say just enough that people can understand what you're after, and even get into some conversations with people, which all makes your traveling so much more fun and enjoyable, I think. So Wei and Kim have offered everyone a free lesson. It's at nomadingabout.com. Free easy travel speak lesson with hyphens in between those words. I'll put a link in the show notes, and most impressively, you can use the discount code Amanda to get 40% off the cost of Easy Travel Speak. So it's at nomadingabout.com/easy-travel-speak. So thanks, guys. Now, my first guest today to tell me all about why I should go scuba diving is Ella Loeffler. You might remember that Ella was recently volunteering in a sea turtle colony in Malaysia. That is not the only place she's been scuba diving in a fairly short time. And let me think. Oh, yeah, only less than 2 years she's been scuba diving, but she's already done dives in some really cool parts of the world.
Oh, I'm in love with scuba diving. I could talk about it forever. I'm pretty new. I've only been doing it for about a year and a half. Okay. So we went on a family holiday to Rottnest Island at the end of 2017.
Oh, that's just near me.
Yeah, nice and close.
Yep.
But so my mum was a scuba diver when she was younger, and had been telling me for a long time that I should dive, but I'd somehow been too busy to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she threw me in the water while we were there with a tank on, and I just fell in love. I actually first panicked. Couldn't breathe, was very claustrophobic, and then you sort of descend down and everything goes blue and quiet, and I was like, oh, okay, this is great. And then you just get lost underwater. I can't even, it's just so beautiful, the things you see. And then I've been a bit addicted since, and everywhere I go I've managed to fit in a dive.
Oh, wonderful. Whereabouts in the world have you been diving then?
So I'm trying to think. So after Perth, I did my course in Melbourne, so the cold waters of Melbourne.
Ooh.
I braved that.
Well done.
But I saw some nice stuff. And then I went on a holiday to Sri Lanka and did some diving there, which was really beautiful.
What kind of stuff do you see around Sri Lanka diving?
So I was in the south where the tsunami was about, what would have been now, 13 years back? No, 15? So most, all of the reef stuff had been destroyed then and hasn't really come back, which is a bit sad to see.
Yeah.
But there are lots of where I was in Willagama, there were lots of dramatic sort of rocks and lots of so many beautiful fish. You still get such diverse fish life, which was really gorgeous. And then where else have I been diving? I went diving in Eilat in the Red Sea. Which was really gorgeous as well. Lots of beautiful coral. And I'm trying to remember.
That's already a very diverse range. That's awesome.
So then I went about a month ago because I needed a holiday before my holiday, obviously. Me and my friend went to Cairns, which had been my dream for a long time, to go to the Great Barrier Reef.
Of course.
So, did a liveaboard there. So, like, on the boat for 3-4 days, and that was magical.
Oh, beautiful.
Like, as beautiful as they say.
Oh, wonderful.
Turtles and sharks and so much coral. Really, really beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then been diving in Malaysia, trying to fin as much as I can.
Of course. Oh, that sounds amazing. Do you have a special destination that you'd love to go somewhere else in the world to dive?
Yeah, I'm dying to go to Sikudan, which is just off the coast of Borneo. I hear from all the other divers that is the place to go, that you kind of go down and then don't know where to look between the manta rays and the turtles and the God knows what else. But I'm also wary of not using up all my good dive spots all at once. So, I'll see how I go. But also
you've got to eke them out a bit through the years. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
But I've definitely not chosen the cheapest hubby, but worth it.
Yes. Well, exactly. When it pays itself back by the sounds of it. I mean, I don't mind snorkeling, but you mentioned sharks in the middle of that. Does this not bother you?
So I haven't. I've only actually seen black-tipped reef sharks, which are a type of shark that are not dangerous at all.
Right.
But I'm pretty cool with most things underwater. Like I think I'd probably be more excited if a shark was heading towards me to eat me than I would be scared. I'd be like, wow, that's amazing.
Well, that's good. Okay, with that attitude, you can dive anywhere.
Yeah. But I think also what I love about scuba diving is it's like a way of seeing a different side of where I am. And I often try, if I can, to find a company that's run by locals, and then it's, get to spend a bit of time with them as well. And it's a nice way to like open up and have a bit of conversation and hear about what they do and that kind of thing, which I enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. I think that's very true. I was just thinking of a couple of the snorkeling trips I've done, and you're out in the boat for maybe most of a day or more, and there's a lot of time where you're just sort of sitting around chatting. And so if you're doing that with some local people in all these cool places around the world, that's an added bonus for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And you get to meet like-minded people, because obviously everyone who likes scuba diving has that passion in common. So
yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's the other thing about being surrounded by those kind of people, that at home, my friends are a bit over me talking about animals all the time. I think they got a bit nuts. So here I can just talk about it for hours and no one seems to care. It's just, just everyone's happy to listen. It's great.
That's perfect. And they all have their own stories to tell, which are probably really fascinating for you as well. So yeah. That's cool. That sounds brilliant. There'll be a common theme here, I know, because Ella was the first to say that she would be more excited if a shark was swimming towards her than scared, and everyone else I've spoken to agrees. I'm a little bit scared of sharks, I have to confess, but I know that in reality I shouldn't be. There's a lot more dangerous things out there. Anyway, I love all of Ella's enthusiasm about scuba diving, and definitely it's infectious. Now, my next guest today is Deborah Dickson-Smith, and it was in fact meeting Deborah at a conference a year ago that first gave me the idea of doing an episode about scuba, and I've only just got around to it, so my apologies for that, Deborah. But I've had that idea in my head for quite some time now. So Deborah actually really devotes her life to scuba diving, and with her partner has a company all devoted to helping people take diving holidays at Dive Planet. And she's quite the expert. We'll hear some more stories from Deborah about some of her diving experiences in future episodes too. But this is just when I asked Deborah to tell me about why people should go scuba diving.
I explained that when I first got into diving, it was basically because I stuck my head underwater and saw what was there. And I find it hard to believe that anyone could stick their head underwater and not want to explore that more. I think if you're a lover of landscapes and a lover of wildlife, you're missing out on half of what the world has to offer if you don't scuba dive. Because once you get under there's completely different landscapes. completely different wildlife. It's incredibly colourful. And anywhere you go, whether it's Thailand, Fiji, Indonesia, there's equally beautiful landscapes underwater and above water.
I've never thought about it in terms of thinking of it as a landscape, but it makes a lot of sense. And it would vary from place to place the way that landscapes do in above the water.
Oh, it really does. You know, some of them are volcanic. Some of them are just little coral cays. And, yeah, some of them have beautiful caverns that you can swim through with, light coming through from the top. And, yeah, like I say, even wrecks can look very pretty when they're covered in soft coral and surrounded by fish.
That does sound nice. Which is your do you have, I know it's probably a bad question, like your favourite child, but do you have a favourite diving spot somewhere in the world?
The last place I dived.
Do you have somewhere you would like to go that you haven't been?
Yeah, I'd like to dive in Mexico. Mm-hmm. I'd like to go and see the cenotes. These are the freshwater caverns in the Yukon Peninsula, and I'd love to go to the there's a huge biosphere marine protected area there that just looks quite incredible.
Wow, cool. One day,
hopefully.
I love thinking about the underwater landscapes as well, because clearly they're so different to what's above the waterline. I love the idea. And it makes me, just talking to Deborah, made me think of some of those, most amazing photos you see from great underwater photographers. All right, now on to our final guest today, and it's Talon Windwalker, who I've spoken with a few times before. I could speak to him forever. He always tells his stories so beautifully, and he also has had quite a few diving experiences, and also probably would say he's been addicted to it. It's something that really gets into your blood, I think. So here's Talon talking about some of his diving experiences.
It's really cool. Scuba diving is addictive. It's such a different world. When you're above the water, and then you get down, and when you're on the boat and you look down, you don't really see anything. Even if you're in the water that we were like in the Caribbean and stuff, where the water is super clear, from the boat, you just really don't see that much. You can see a little bit of movement, maybe. You can tell there's some coral, but you don't really see all the intricacies. And then as soon as your head's underneath the water, it's this whole different world. And one of the things I love about it is, if you enjoy seeing wildlife, critters, down typically, well, of course, it depends where you're diving, but usually where people are popular diving, there's tons of life. And you see the intricacies of life down there, and things that you just normally wouldn't have even pondered. Like, I remember one of my first dives, we went by a cleaning station. So there's this place where there'll be these little fish and these little shrimp, and they kind of hang out until a bigger fish comes by, assumes a certain posture, and that tells them, I need to be cleaned, and because of this, we're cool, I'm not going to try to eat you.
Wow,
and
really?
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
They adopt this posture that tells them, I'm here for cleaning. And these little shrimp and the fish come out, and they get inside their mouth and through their gills, and they crawl over their body, and they clean them. They pick off dead tissue and parasites and whatever. And, if you're not interested in the water, you just never would have expected anything like that. I thought for sure when the fish's mouth was open and these couple shrimp got in their mouth, it went in the mouth. I'm like, you're just going to get eaten. Are you crazy? But that's not how it works. They have their little communication thing, and fascinating, all the various levels of life. And you see it in so many different levels, and it's amazing to see how everything interacts, and different things that some of the predators have adapted to, try to make their job of catching food a little easier. It's just fascinating. And it's also, being underwater, you kind of have the sensation that you're flying. because, because of you're in the water, you're just not having to really do much to move, and you can just float there and hover, and you feel like you're in this completely different world and environment. And whenever I'm down there, I forget pretty much everything else about life up above the water.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
That kind of experience, and you're looking around trying to catch all the different types of life, and some of it can be so tiny, and some of it's big. Like, we had in Honduras, we have the whale sharks that come by, and they're the largest fish. They're enormous, like swimming in a school bus. And they're gentle, and they're just amazing to be near. Or like the times when we would get to go swimming with the wild dolphins, and they'd come check you out, and sometimes they'd bring their little calves over to show off, and those kind of experiences, you can't beat those. But it's also cool, like, you travel. So I did a lot of my training for my diving. I did some in the States where I left, got certified as my open water, and I did that in the hot spring.
Oh, wow.
There was no fish.
No.
Then I went from there to Mexico, to Cozumel, Mexico, which is one of the finest diving places in the world. And just was blown away by all the things that I saw and experienced there. And then went to Honduras to get my dive master and instructor rating, and again, incredible experiences. And then later, when we left North America and South America and went over to the other side, we did some diving while we were in Vietnam, and it was such a different experience. Just you see a couple of the same fish, but a whole bunch of different ones. And we were lucky enough, I got to see a cuttlefish, which is one of my big kind of dreams for diving. I wanted to see a cuttlefish, and I got to see one while I was diving in Vietnam. And just the types of critters and the type of, for lack of a different term, landscape underwater. It's really cool to go see a place, experience the culture, experience the food, experience the languages and everything else, and then see its world underwater. It just really kind of rounds that whole experience out. So
it's almost like going to an additional country by the sounds of it, because it's such a unique place down there.
Well, even your experiences on the boat, can be very different too. I mean, the way that things happened on the boat in Vietnam is very different from Honduras.
Right.
And so you get another side of the culture there that you may not experience otherwise, even though obviously the dive boats are kind of geared towards tourists, because that's most of who they're getting. But it still is, you're still getting a different insight into culture, and you're being able to really interact one-on-one with, some of the locals that are working on the boat. And our guide was a local, and you're able to, when you're between dives, you have time where you have to stay above the water. And during that time, you have time to visit and kind of get to know things, and you've had this experience together. And so talking about it and seeing their perspective on things, it's kind of a fascinating opportunity.
Yeah, I guess it's a kind of a special bonding experience, because typically, you're out on a boat for a good half a day or a day or something, aren't you? And some of that time is just kind of waiting around time and chatting time, and that's kind of special.
Yeah, when we did it, like when in Vietnam, there was a marine national park, and so the coral were in good health, and it's near some island residences that used to kind of fish in that area, but now have a different kind of establishment since it's a national park system. But you were still able to see some of those homes and the way that they live that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. So that was cool too. And also on the boats, especially if you hit some of these prime diving areas, you're also meeting people from other countries. So even though a lot of your interaction is fellow tourists, you're still kind of getting that international, because, I remember one boat we were on, we had some Danes, some Swedes, some Italians. I think there were some Brazilians on the same boat.
Perfect.
So, you're still having this really big mix, and it's fascinating to kind of hear some of the different things being said and the different viewpoints. And it's a great experience for kids too. As soon as they're 10, you can do open water certification. And so I've spent a lot of time in the water with my daughter, and that's special too, because you're seeing a lot of these really cool things and all this life. And she learned a lot about ecology and science stuff just because of spending so much time in the water and learning how to dive. You see and experience a lot different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's super educational. Exactly. Having that really hands-on experience to see all of that. That's, got to be good for science class.
Oh, yeah. And just the memory building. We have lots of fun experiences and memories that we talk about still, even though we haven't been diving in a few years. And, those are still a big part of us. And that whole process of, doing it together. For us, it was a little different. I was an instructor training when she got certified. And so I was able to be part of her class. Someone else taught her, but I was able to be the dive master for some of her dives.
Oh, awesome.
Got to be part of that and, have those experiences with her of her first dive and all those. And she was with me when I did my 100th dive. She was my dive buddy quite a bit. Oh. And in the scuba community, your 100th dive is a big deal. Uh-huh. So she was with me for that. So that was really cool.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah. So there's, those kind of joint experiences.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Some really beautiful, really memorable experiences. That sounds amazing. It really does sound amazing. And lots of common experiences there throughout my 3 guests today, actually, that the diving itself is amazing, that it's like encountering whole new landscapes and incredibly vast new amounts of wildlife. And that as well, the whole process of going diving gets you closer to local people, gets you meeting other tourists and other locals in this, kind of relaxed atmosphere that lasts, at least a day or maybe even a few days. And yeah, lots of beautiful benefits to scuba diving when you travel. So I would love to know if you are a diver. And actually what I'd really love is if some of you could come into the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group and share any photos you've taken, some of your favourites from any underwater experiences, because I think that's the bit that sells it to me, seeing those just, incredible pictures. I mean, as I said a couple of times in the episode, I've done some snorkeling in, beautiful places in the Red Sea in Egypt where the coral colours were just absolutely incredible. And up here in Western Australia in Ningaloo Reef, for example, as well, where the sea turtles were there, and in the distance, some of those very friendly, safe sharks, even though that still freaked me out. In fact, on that trip, we were meant to snorkel with the manta rays, and as hard as they tried, the boat tour operators couldn't find any manta rays that day. And I have to say, I'm kind of glad because they're enormous and I think I would freak out. Anyway, that's just a snorkel experience. So I'd love to see some pictures of your diving experiences. Do come along to the Facebook group. It's at Thoughtful Travellers. And if you haven't joined yet, there's a link in the show notes or just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook. Thanks again to our sponsors, Easy Travel Speak. And there are links in the show notes to the free lesson and to the course page. And don't forget, you can use the discount code Amanda for 40% off, which is a bargain. Thank you also to our wonderful guests today. First up, we had Ella, who the link I'm going to leave for Ella is Langtenga, where she was volunteering with the Langtenga Turtle Watch. And if you just look up langtengaturtlewatch.org, you can find lots of information there and even adopt a sea turtle as part of their nesting program. Thank you also to Deborah from Dive Planet. So that's diveplanit.com, which is a dive travel agency. And a big thank you, as always, to Talon. And you can find Talon's travel blog at onedad1kid.com. The ones are numbers. And you can also find Talon at Instagram, one dad, one kid, ONE dad, number one kid. just to make it a bit tricky. All of this stuff, though, is easy to find in the show notes. And for this episode, you can find the show notes at notaballerina.com/151. Thank you, as always, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.